Welcome to r/slash Prorevenge, where OP gets revenge against an entire school. Our next Reddit post is from Pharma the Karma. My school had a tradition, and I'm not sure if it's odd or not, but each year we had a kind of mini valedictorian award, starting in middle school. I was in the gifted program, so several of us had 4.0s, so the award was given to whoever had the highest overall GPA on the 100-point scale. I've always been very competitive by nature, so I set my sights on winning this award in the 7th grade. However, there was a bit of competition. Todd had really good grades as well, with the top spot usually bouncing back and forth between the two of us. It was so close that every single quiz, exam, and homework assignment had the potential to dethrone one of us while lifting the other. I had an average of 98 point something, as did he. Todd had a bit of an edge, however. See, Todd's mom was known for being a bully. She would yell, scream, berate, and openly mock any teacher who dared to give Todd a lower grade than me. But that isn't all. Todd's mom was also a teacher at our school. She would openly defy and berate her own colleagues should they not provide whatever grade she wanted for Todd. Now, usually the school would avoid giving a child a class with their mother, but sometimes this was unavoidable. Naturally, we ended up in a class with his mother as the teacher. This was a world history class, one which required several papers, tests, etc. By the end of the year, Todd and I had been neck and neck in the class. But I noticed something. I consistently outperformed Todd by several points on any objective learning assessments, fill in the blank, multiple choice, etc. However, somehow, Todd consistently outperformed me on written and subjective learning assessments, papers, essays, etc. Being a young and ignorant kid, I just assumed that he was better at writing. That is, until our final assignment rolled around. All of our tests had been taken, all our quizzes and homework assignments graded, all our papers submitted and graded. The semester was functionally complete. I held a fraction of a point over Todd in the class, which put me overall ahead in the valedictorian race. But Mommy Dearest couldn't have that. So with 3 days left of the year, she assigned a last-minute 2-page paper. Short and simple. I submitted mine and received a 95. Fair enough. I found out that Todd got a 100, just enough to put him ahead of me in the class and in the valedictorian race. I was frustrated, so I asked Todd to see his paper repeatedly, desperate to find ways to improve to better my chances the next year. He refused again and again. Then I remembered, when his mom handed the papers back to us, she never gave one to Todd. He hadn't done the paper. It was purely an assignment contrived to put him ahead. Now comes the revenge. Our school had just transferred to a paperless gradebook system the year before, so this was the 2nd year on it. The principal was determined to make this cost efficient. So after the first trial year, he didn't even bother restocking the teachers with physical gradebooks. That way, he could add the amount saved from physical books to the total amount that the new paperless system was saving the school. Now, during this time, I was also working. I had a family member who owned a small local ISP, and I would help out at every opportunity. I loved computers, and still do. Now, working with this family member equipped me with much more networking knowledge than other kids my age, and even most adults. I decided that with this power came great responsibility. I was going to right this grievous injustice. So I started digging. I got on a school PC and started going through the network. Turns out the school had wanted to save as much money as possible while going paperless. So they didn't hire a professional technician, consultant, or anything. One of the dads just volunteered in exchange for a reduced tuition charge. It was a private school. So this system was just a nightmare. There was no dedicated network for sharing grades. There was no password protection on any files. There were no administrative restriction on any files. Nothing. What the headmaster did was just share a single directory on his computer. That directory held the entire gradebook for each and every class of each and every grade, kindergarten through 12th grade. I thought this was too good to be true. Surely there was a backup somewhere. So I went to the school's port switcher, which was just an unlocked closet. I checked around, expecting to see a server or a set of drives set to automatically back up whatever was shared on the network. Nada. Now I was in a rage. I had gone to the principal several times, pointing out that Todd's mom was abusing her position. She was bullying teachers to give her kid an edge. Her son would even brag about how he could get away with not doing homework in other classes because mommy would make sure nothing came of it. But the principal had failed to act. He had declared that each teacher was sovereign in their classrooms. So long as nothing illegal happened, he would not intervene. He was a very unprincipled principal. So I made a decision to delete the nepotism. I couldn't just change my grades in her class. She monitored my average like a hawk. So I went nuclear. I went into that subdirectory and deleted every single file in it. But the principal had shared his whole directory. So I emptied the recycling. I completely wiped every trace of grading software on that computer because that idiot didn't even put a password on the computer. So from the desktop directory, I was able to access everything. This was in the very last couple of days of school. There were no hard copies. There were no backups. There was nothing remaining to even prove that the school year ever occurred. On the final day of school, we got called into an assembly. The principal was visibly disheveled, shaken, and upset. Not even angry, just broken. He announced that the entire year of grades were totally lost. The school didn't know what to do because there were no hard copies. They couldn't recover the data because they cheaped out and didn't purchase a backup system. All they could do was reinstall the software. But on grading software, if there's no grade to input, then what does it default to when showing the grades of the students? A 100%. Every single student in that school got valedictorian of their class that year. 100% all around. Heck, even a few kids got enough of a boost from that final year that they got to graduate on time instead of being held back. Next year, we had a new principal. I was held slightly suspect since everyone knew of my tech background, but nobody could prove anything. Even the PCs in the computer lab didn't have usernames or passwords, so there was no way to link me to anything. That following year, security cameras and passwords were put into the computer lab. Yo, OP's like Robin Hood. He's getting revenge, but by spreading happiness and cheer and good vibes, he's stealing good grades from nepotism babies and giving it to students with bad grades. Our next Reddit post is from Jockstrap. I got hosed by a residential construction contractor years ago, Mark. I'd done 3 projects for Mark prior to this one and had no issues. For the project, Mark wanted plans for a remodel and add-on based off of some photos and some hand sketches. It was about $1,500 in work, which was a lot at the time. I delivered the first draft. Mark was quite happy with the result and would be consulting with the client over revisions or acceptance. He said he would get back to me as soon as he had some news about the project. Typically, I would just run a tab on something like that, as there's no limit on revisions and updates until the project is finalized. Everyone understood that the meter is running when I'm working. In nearly a decade of this line of work, I'd never had any problems with anyone paying. So after delivering the first draft to Mark, I waited on the revisions. It was a pretty decent-sized project for me at that time, and I was looking forward to it. I waited and waited and waited. 3 weeks went by. Mark wasn't returning my calls, so I sent him a bill. 2 days later, Mark called me and said he didn't get the job, so he wouldn't be paying. Whoa, we didn't have an agreement of me getting paid if he gets paid. I get paid for my time regardless and never work on a bid arrangement. He still refused, so I told him to take a hike. I also let some other freelance CAD guys know about him. We were competitors, but there was so much work we would refer projects to each other if we were overloaded. 6 months later, Mark calls all buddy-like with me. He has a big project with a tight deadline, and he knows I'm the man for it. He's laying it on thick with me too, like I'm a great friend that he hadn't talked to in a while, telling me that I'm the best at my job, and so on. I know exactly where this is headed. So I played nice with him, and I'm sure that Mark thought that it was all water under the bridge. The next day, I sent Mark a bid that was high. about 50% more than my typical rate. I tacked $1,500 onto it and told him I wanted it all up front. Mark called 10 minutes later and wanted to know why the price was so high and payment required up front. Those weren't the terms of our previous projects. So I explained it to him as he seemed to be suffering from selective amnesia. Mark starts begging me to do the project. This isn't a bid, he claims. He actually has the project in hand. Mark also is apparently having trouble finding someone to do this work. Apparently, he'd managed to stiff all the good operators in the area, so he worked his way back to me. I told him I'd be more than happy to take on any project he had, once the $1,500 was paid and all future projects were paid up front. I never heard from him again. He didn't get that project either, even though he claimed it was locked up. Mark's wife actually owned their business. It had an effeminate name, and they used this women-owned construction business as a selling point in ads and at trade shows. I guess 2/3 of their clients were landed just on that piece of deception. The wife was mainly just the face of the company and a marketing point. She wasn't involved in the business beyond that. So when Mark started complaining about difficulty getting subcontractors to work with, she started calling around. I heard through the grapevine that she was told off several times. Anyone who's worked with a construction subcontractor knows they can be rather blunt, to say the least. Mark hadn't just screwed the guys in my industry, he had screwed guys in every industry. A year later, Mark and his wife were sued by multiple subcontractors and customers. Mark really screwed up a few houses, putting in the wrong flooring, getting paint schemes wrong, and so on. They lost these court cases and tried to get out of it by filing bankruptcy. They got a few dismissed, but not all of them. Last I heard, they got divorced, and he was stuck with a lot of the debt because she was able to prove that she wasn't involved in some of the decisions. But she had some debt too. I like to think that I got that ball rolling when I let some other subcontractors know about their shady practices. Our next Reddit post is from the Red Avatar. This is a very old revenge from when I was a teenager in the 90s. There were only a few PC gamers around at the time, and without internet, it was hard to get a hold of new games. Me and a friend bought games from abroad via airmail because local stores didn't sell many, but these weren't cheap. A new kid joined our class, however, and his uncle had tons and tons of games that we didn't have. We offered to trade games with him and gave him our original copies for him to copy, and in return we got corrupted floppies. Yeah, it was the 90s. They were missing copy protection. And after a few months of this, we received not a single working game, while he had received all of our games. The Settlers, Doom 2, Monkey Island, etc. And some he returned in less than nice condition. We had enough, and we wanted to get revenge, but we didn't know how. Now, the 90s were known for the many AIDS campaigns after Freddie Mercury died of AIDS in 1991. I was a huge fan of Queen, and this new friend would often mock me for liking a gay singer. He came from a very conservative family, and his mother was quite Catholic. And this is what gave us an idea when we had to attend an AIDS event organized by a certain foundation with our class. At the end, we were given flyers about AIDS, homosexuality, etc., and free condoms with the logo of the AIDS Foundation were up for grabs. We each grabbed a few, for reasons you'll soon reach below. Me and my friend were one of the very few with a computer and inkjet printer at home, so we got this idea to screw him over. We created a fake letter addressed to our friend, pretending we were the AIDS Foundation, copying the logo and everything to make it look as authentic as possible. The letter went something like this. Dear, the friend's first name, thank you for your letter. We understand it's difficult being open about being homosexual, and you have many questions after the event that you attended with your class. Please find enclosed a flyer which should answer many of your questions as well as some condoms. Please practice safe sex at all times. We enclosed all the flyers that we had gotten at the event, as well as the condoms, and mailed it to Mr., his last name, to guarantee his father would open the letter first. We had no idea the storm this would create. We knew with him being homophobic, this would be great revenge, but apparently his mother had been in tears, screaming, his father angry, and he was grounded for weeks with his parents convinced he was gay. In the end, he figured we had something to do with it because we had been carefully fishing to see if our prank had succeeded. But at first, he thought the letter was authentic, and we had contacted the foundation in his name. When we finally confessed that we had faked it all, we had a nice trip to the principal to explain why we had done this with his parents present. It's still the best revenge I ever took in my life, even though it was 30 years ago. Man, nearly destroyed your friend's life over this. I'm not really sure why you had to talk to the principal though, because this had nothing to do with the school whatsoever. That was r/Prorevenge, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.